Hello, people. You are listening to Off the Top, a podcast for builders, creators, and lovers of life.
Hello, people. Oh, man. Welcome to 2019. People, you might notice we've got a little different music and a different intro. I was trying to figure out something to do a little bit new for this year for season 3 of Off the Top, and my daughter happened to be at the bottom of the stairs, and she was doing a little reenactment of something that I couldn't really hear. So I invited her to come up to the office and ask her if she wanted to do the intro. And honest to goodness, we did that in like 7 seconds. And I'm really proud of my new 2019 intro for Off the Top. And so this is season 3. Mark Kinsley and I started this off just a random idea to start recording our phone calls together back in July, somewhere around July of 2017. And then we podcasted all through last year and sort of Q4-ish last year. We just had to sort of change it up a little bit. And Mark had some stuff that was going on and couldn't be around quite as much. And so I took over. And since Mark has had some really incredible stuff in his life happen, I've had a lot on my end happen, and I'm looking forward to actually having him back on soon to sort of talk about some of those changes and kind of give a little bit of the old Off the Top flavor. And I've had a few people ask me, and I've gotten a couple of emails asking why we haven't published an episode. We haven't. It's been like months since we published an Off the Top episode, and the answer ends up being that there's this little boy. His name is Kendrick, my son, that was born on September the 2nd, and he is a primary reason that there hasn't been a lot between work and the new baby and him reminding us of his existence, like on the hour, every hour, through the night. There just hasn't been a lot of time. And so sometimes you have to make a choice whether you spend time keeping the main thing, or you stick to like less important deadlines, like publishing a podcast every week. And so I am so happy to be back in podcast mode and with you. And here's another reason why we haven't published very much, because Christmas, people always ask the first part of January when they see you for the first time at the turn of the year, they'll say, "How's your holidays?" And my answer has been terrible. My holidays were terrible. And the main reason is because on Christmas Eve I came down with the flu. On Christmas night my daughter came down with the flu, so we stayed quarantined the entire holiday break. We didn't do any family Christmas stuff, and it was tough being quarantined, worried that the baby, that Kendrick would get it, that Meredith would get it. And I will tell you, on the bright side though, I am probably top 10 in the world because of my quarantine at Mario Kart. Because that's about all me and Kendall did for like 6 or 7 days, is we played Mario Kart and watched movies and ate chicken and dumplings. Because that's what one does when they get the flu in the South, is they eat chicken and dumplings and play video games. So here's the good news. Here's the best news, and really the purpose of this podcast is today. It is Tuesday, January the 15th of 2019. We're 15 days into the new year, and I have kept my New Year's resolution 100% intact. Now, you may know that I'm one of the exceptions to the rule, because most people, they make a resolution in December and it feels good and they think it's good because it's in the future, and then they get to January 1st and all of a sudden, those Oreos start talking to them, or man, that gym, it's early in the morning and it's far away, And, this, like, I'm not going to criticize resolution. Like, gosh, that character at my office just is trying me as hard as they can. And we end up breaking our resolutions really early, but not me. 15 days and I'm going strong. And I am committed and convinced that I will keep my resolution through the entire year. Now, if you wonder what my resolution is, I'm glad you asked. My resolution is simply this. In 2019, I will not be reading any books. None. Not one. And I'm pretty sure I can fulfill that. I'm pretty sure that I can go an entire year and not read any books. Now, you may wonder how I got to this particular resolution. And so here's something that I wrote when I was journaling just before the end of the year. I wrote this. In the last 10 years, I've read hundreds of books, thousands of articles, and watched tens of thousands of YouTube videos, all in the name of growth. And I'm thinking about all this information I brought in over the last 10 years. And I'm thinking about how I've had this appetite to learn, grow, and develop. And really it started when I had my what I call my alarm clock moment back in college. And that's a term that I use in my TEDx talk, which I'll link in the description if you want to kind of get a concept of that. But ever since I had this alarm clock moment in college, I've had like this insatiable need to learn, grow, and develop. And I've done that for the last better part of a decade, or more than a decade. And, as grateful as I am for all of this information that I've had at my disposal, the fact that I have the world's knowledge in my pocket on my phone, or I can ask Alexa anything I want to ask her, and I can do almost anything I want to do in terms of bringing in new information. I can listen to podcasts. I can read books. I can go to a library if those things still exist. I can listen to books on audio. I can listen to new information in my car. I can throw in my AirPods, and I can be sitting at a doctor's office or a dentist or at a bank or walking through Target or the grocery store, and I can be taking in new information. And I'm grateful. I know that my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, they would have been amazed to know that their great-grandson or great-great-grandson would live in a world where there's no stop to the information that we can take in. There, we can ask any question, we can get any answer, and we have all this content. But the thing that makes it a challenge is that all of this knowledge, all of this content can be quite overwhelming. And it seems like for so long I've done countless hours of reading and watching and listening, studying, and I feel as though I've forgotten more than I've retained. And I've forgotten more than I've actually remembered. And so this whole dilemma kind of got me thinking. When considering the new year and considering 2019, what if I didn't need to take in any new information in 2019? What if you, me and you, what if we already have enough information? So now before we go any further in this podcast, it's important to speak to the group of listeners that may be inclined to accuse me of professional or personal development heresy. So before we go any further, let me just get a few things straight. Okay, so the first thing is that I know there is a need for new information in 2019. I'm not saying that I'm not going to take in any information. It's important to know what's going on in the world around you. I get that. And I know that I'll take in some new information, and that's a good thing for me. The next thing is that I'm not saying that I know everything. And I'm definitely not saying that I've like risen to this level of enlightenment. And third is that I'm definitely not assuming that this strategy will be a good thing for everyone. Because like the truth is, if you're planning to like, I don't know, read a book a month or a book a week or a book a day, like if that's something that you need to do or want to do for your development this year, like Hakuna Matata, go do that thing. The most important part of New Year's resolutions is intention and follow through. So what are the intended outcomes you're going to get from whatever you're doing differently or doing more of or doing less of in 2019? And if that's reading, like mazel tov, like go read, like turn this podcast off and go read a book, and that's cool. Okay, so those are all things that I'm not saying. Here's what I am saying. What I am saying is that, what if, imagine a world where common sense was common practice. Like, what if we lived in a world, what if you lived in a world, what if I lived in a world where people simply did what they already knew what to do, and we didn't get caught up or distracted by this endless pursuit of new information? What if we accepted our inner wisdom? What if we trusted ourselves? What if we simply did what we already know to do? So for me in 2019, instead of reading, I'll be applying what I already know. I've already done the work. I've already read an unbelievable amount of books. I've already listened to like countless podcasts and YouTube videos, and I've gone after all this knowledge, but rarely, I think, do we stop and think, okay, so I know this stuff. What am I doing with it? And so for me, 2019 is more a year about simplicity and application. So you may ask yourself, this is a question I ask myself. So if I'm not going to read, I'm not going to do what I've always done, which is take in all this information. If I'm not going to do that, what am I going to do? So I'm glad you asked. So here's 10 things that I wrote down in my journal that I am going to be deliberately doing throughout the year in order to replace the taking in of new information. So the first thing is really simple. The first thing is simply meditation. Because, one thing that I've learned in my world as a coach is that so much of wisdom isn't about what you put into your mind. So much of wisdom is how deeply you're able to draw out what's already in your heart. And so first step that I made was that I canceled my Audible subscription where I store and listen to all my audiobooks, because being highly dyslexic, there's not a lot of like tangible, like real books that I would just pick up and read. Most of the books I read, I usually end up listening to, or if I really like the book, I'll listen to the book and read the book, because sometimes I like to mark it up and highlight it and do that whole thing. So my favorite books, I own the book and the audiobook, but I've canceled my subscription and downloaded the Headspace app. There's a bunch of good meditation apps. Another one is one called 10% Happier. There's a ton of them, and you don't have to have an app. I enjoy a more of a guided meditation practice. It's easier for me, and so that's like the big first step, because meditation ends up being a really great way to sort of settle your mind so that you can have the space to access what you already know. Because if I'm going to spend the year focusing what I already know, it reasoned to me that it would be a good idea to create some space and create some calm and create some quiet so that I could perhaps better access those things that I already know how to do. And as as a coach at Dale Carnegie, I see this over and over with my clients and the participants that come through our program. This thing that Dale Carnegie said, and I mean, he's talked about this in the teens, the 20s, and the 30s of the early 1900s. I mean, he talked about this concept of innate greatness, and the thing is greatness is often an illusion until we calm our minds. Greatness is not only something that is hard for us to see, it's like a mirage or an illusion, or like we think we see it, but it's not really there, and we can never really obtain it. And it can be this really elusive thing until we slow down enough to really feel the situation, to really understand what's going on, to really make the best choice that we know how to make. And until we're able to put our stress in perspective and we're able to actually trust ourselves. So number 1, meditation. Number 2 is just simply thumbing through old books that I've already read. We said this before, we've already done the work. You've already read books. So instead of picking up a new one, why not pick up an old one, thumb through it, and remind yourself what you liked about it, what you got from it, what you enjoyed about it. And you're sure to find something that you highlighted, or that you underlined, or maybe even something you forgot you ever read. And so what you might do with that is you might discover something that you already know but you're not doing. So now that you have the information and you're reminded of it, it gives you the opportunity to stop, just take that one thing, that one concept, that one idea, that one sentence, that one quote, and actually apply it to your life. Take action on it, do something with it. The next thing, if we got meditate, thumb through an old book, the third thing is just to simply go for a walk. So, a question that I've asked myself and that you might ask yourself is that, when was the last time you just left your phone at home and just went for a walk? No intention, no agenda, just a walk. And imagine what could be possible if we just made more time to be quiet, to be grateful, and just to enjoy the small things. The small things like just going for a walk. And in my experience, when I actually quiet down, when I leave the phone at home, and when I just put my hands in my pockets and I just go for a walk, even if it's in my neighborhood, it's funny that sometimes the trees will talk to you and the ground will connect with you, and you get this connection with the world around you that you can't get if you're not paying attention. Because the sunshine is good for us. In fact, I was telling somebody this the other day that I had this great advantage when it came to things like this, because my grandfather, he was so connected with the earth around him. He came from farmers, and he was he grew up on a farm, and as long as I knew him, he always had a small garden. And I can remember he used to love the rain so much, because the rain is what makes things grow. And he would always say, hey, if it doesn't rain, we're all going to dry up. And I can remember this one time we were going through this drought. This was 2000, maybe 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly what year, but the North Carolina had a pretty big drought going on. And we were in his furniture store, and he's in a button up and slacks. I mean, he's dressed for work, and I was too. And this huge gully washer of a downpour came, and it hadn't rained. It seemed like maybe in a month, and everything was dry, and the lakes were low, and the creeks were dried up, and we got this huge Texas size downpour. And the second he saw it, he walked outside into the parking lot and just put his hands out and just like looked up at the clouds and just like cried his eyes out and just stood in the rain. And that's something I'll never forget because of how just grateful he was that he was connected to this planet that gave him life and that gave him a gift of rain that day. And like, I just think that if we would be willing to just go on a walk every once in a while and just disconnect and just listen to ourselves, to our creator, to the creation around us, maybe we would find some things that we didn't know was there and that has been there the entire time. Okay, so we've got meditate, we've got thumbing through an old book, we've got going through a walk. The fourth thing is, this is like one of the most simple, which is just listening to music and just letting your mind wonder and wander. I didn't mean to do that, but wonder and wander, I guess that's interchangeable. And, you know, so think about, so when you think about music, like since the beginning of time, music is how we've communicated our emotions when like just words wouldn't do. Like, it's how we've told stories, it's how we've celebrated, it's how we've mourned and we've protested and we've fallen in love. Like, music is the theme to every deep and meaningful human emotion. And so music oftentimes can get us past our minds and down deep into our soul. So maybe we should just relax and like put on some music and just like sit in a chair and let a few songs play. And maybe that would be better than new information, because maybe it would help us to access something that's been there the whole time. So we've got meditate, we've got thumbing through an old book, we've got going for a walk, we've got listening to music and letting your mind wander. And then the fifth thing is journaling. This is something that I've done for a while, on and off, and it's been something that I feel like, especially as someone who I feel like I have an abnormally active mind, and that's been true ever since I was a kid. And my imagination can be a little wild, and my mind. Oftentimes I have a hard time getting my mind to slow down. So that can cause some confusion and some overwhelm and some stress, and that can cause some anxiety. It can cause a lot of stuff if you're not able to slow it down. And what I found is that journaling allows me to slow down because I only think as fast as I write. And so I'm oftentimes surprised what I already know when I simply allow my pencil to do the work. And there's something about writing, there's something about writing out your thoughts that unlocks things that you didn't know were even there. And, you know, when you're thinking about journaling, you know, it doesn't have to be fancy. I've probably got the most like non-fancy form of journaling. I ascribe to like stream of consciousness. Like, it's not a time of the day necessarily. Sometimes I enjoy journaling like first thing in the morning, but I mean, like, I've got a 4-month-old and a 7-year-old, and if I don't get up before them, it's not going to happen in the morning. So I just focus on trying to make it happen when I'm able to make it happen. Sometimes it's between meetings, and sometimes it's at night, and sometimes it's in the morning, and sometimes it's in between, and sometimes it doesn't even happen. But I've found that, you know, like just journaling and just writing down my thoughts and my ideas and my feelings, you know, it's one of those things that is almost like having my own therapist on call all the time. And sometimes it can be as simple as like, if there's something I'm struggling with or a question I have, before I go and seek counsel, oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just write the question at the top of a journal page and just write about it. Like the different perspectives or how I'm feeling or how different ways I can think about it. And if I don't have my answer by the end of the journaling session, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. When I do go to seek counsel, I understand, I have so much more awareness and self-awareness around that issue that it really helps me to explain what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, how I'm seeing it to the person I'm seeking counsel from, and I have found it to be something that gives me so much more awareness of my surroundings, and it helps me to see things that have been there the entire time. So we got meditate, thumbing through an old book, going for a walk, listen to music, letting your mind wander, journaling, and then number 6 is starting something. So like, just start something. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter even if you're good. It doesn't matter if you'll ever even like get paid for it. The only thing that matters is that you enjoy it. So like, I don't know, start baking more, or start a blog, or like start fishing, or quilting, or scrapbooking, or playing the piano. It doesn't matter what it is. There's something to starting something new, even if you don't do it for a long time, that helps you learn things about yourself, that helps you build your confidence, that helps you build your ability to communicate, that helps you help yourself. So just start something. So we've got meditating, thumbing through an old book, going for a walk, listening to music, letting your mind wander, journaling, starting something. Number 7 is fail at something. You know, I believe that we learn more about ourselves through failure than any other thing. So do something that you might fail at. Like, not on purpose. Of course, you're not going to just go out like on purpose and try to fail. And God forbid it's like a big failure. Like, don't go bungee jumping without a bungee, or skydiving without a parachute. Like, that's not the big failure. Not like catastrophic. Don't do something where you're gonna like lose your house or ruin your marriage, or do something like irreputable to your reputation. Like, just try something that you might not succeed at. Like, maybe something is like trying a different way to have a conversation with someone that you've found hard to talk to before. Or maybe like going to the batting cages and you're a terrible baseball player, and just trying it a different way. Or, taking like a coding class, or, just doing something that scares you a little bit. We learn so much from ourselves when we do things that are a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And sometimes what we learn is that it's not outside of our comfort zone. It's just where we thought where our comfort zone was. But the boundaries of our comfort zone are so much further if we're willing to go and actually explore them. So like, give it a shot. Like, just try something. You never know what, you may surprise yourself. And if you don't surprise yourself and you do actually fail, here's the good news, is you get the ultimate prize, which is a better understanding of who you are and what you've known the entire time. So we've got meditate, we've got thumbing through an old book, we've got going for a walk, we've got listening to music and letting your mind wander, we've got journaling and starting something and failing at something. Number 8 is to teach something. The best way to learn something is to teach someone else. And you may think you understand your work or your hobbies. You may think you understand your faith and what you believe. But try explaining it to someone who knows nothing about it, and see just how well you know it. Albert Einstein's favorite quote when he talks about this topic is, he says, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." So find someone to teach. And, another thing that you'll discover is just simply the joy of mentorship and the pride of deeper understanding of what you believe or what you know or what you do. Teaching is perhaps one of the best ways to learn, to grow, and to develop. All right, so we've got meditating, thumbing through an old book, going for a walk, listening to music, letting your mind wander, journaling, starting something, failing at something, teaching something. Number 9 is give something. So, there was a guy back about 2,000 years ago who lived in Nazareth, who a lot of people followed, and he made a great impact on the world. You may know who I'm talking about. One of the things that he said that has echoed through time is the saying that whether you're a follower of of him or not, you have heard this and probably would say it's true. The saying goes like this: it's better to give than to receive. There's another way to say it is more blessed to give than to receive. And so this concept, and you know this to be true, right? This concept is impossible to understand until you've actually experienced it for yourself. And, giving something is one of those things that give you a sense of joy that no other thing can really give you. And so when I say give something, it doesn't mean spending money, and it doesn't mean some like grand gesture. The truth is you and I, we already have plenty of stuff. And a lot of that stuff is stuff that we don't even need. So one thing that I've started to practice is I'll look around and see some of the stuff that I have and simply ask myself a question: who would enjoy that more than me? And then I take it to them and give it to them and say, hey, I've had this, and when I saw it the other day, I thought that you might enjoy it, so I wanted to give it to you. And I have found that to be such an amazing relationship building practice, not only with other people, but also the relationship that I have with my stuff. It has lowered the stress and anxiety of consumerism and having stuff and needing stuff, and it's put more people first, because after all, isn't that where people deserve to be? Don't they deserve to be before stuff? Like, don't people deserve to be exalted a little bit higher than stuff? And it doesn't have to be expensive, or it doesn't have to be an heirloom. It just has to be kind and maybe a little sacrificial, and just maybe out of love. And I think if you do that, you'll find how much deeper your relationship will be with people, and how much you're able to disconnect from a unhealthy relationship with your stuff. So that's 9 things, and you find the list of all of these 9 things in the show notes. But here's number 10. Number 10 is simply this: instead of reading, maybe love someone well by listening intensely. M. Scott Peck said this. He said, true listening requires a setting aside of oneself. And so, when was the last time you sat down to listen, just to understand another person? Not to judge, not to give advice, not to compare, just to listen. When was the last time you set yourself aside and really demonstrated true listening? Because if you're like most people, you don't get that a lot. I mean, when was the last time you felt like someone else just was there 100% for you and needed nothing in return, and it had no expectation of you, or would not judge, or would not compare, or would not even give you advice? They were just simply there to listen and to understand better. The fact that we don't get that a lot is even more reason to give it away as often as possible. It's rare for people to be 100% focused on another person. But when we are, and when we're willing to, and we are able to, because we've done the work and we've thought about it and it's premeditated, it opens us up to a type of human connection that's rare, that most people don't get the privilege to have. That some people will go their entire lives and not feel the connection that you can have with another person just because you're willing to set yourself aside and listen. So those are the 10 things that I am planning to do this year deliberately, instead of reading, instead of taking in new information. This is the way. These 10 things, I believe, are the way to to better access and apply the things I already know to be true, the things that I've already been placed inside of me, either innately or through study and experience. And so the question is, when I'm thinking about 2019, when we're talking about 2019, is what would you be capable of this year if you simply did what you already know? What if you took action? What if you gave yourself credit for what you could do just today? What if you stopped making excuses? If you tried something, if you simply stepped out into who you've been the entire time? My encouragement to you is to find out by doing what you already know and doing things that will allow you to better access the things you already know. Things like teaching or giving something or listening to someone, starting something or failing, journaling, listening to music or going for a walk or thumbing through an old book or meditating. And all of these things are completely irrelevant if we don't do something with them. So please, I so highly encourage you to do something. Take action, take the first step. Before you even put your phone to sleep after listening to this podcast, go do something. Start momentum. That's how momentum is started, by doing the first thing, taking the smallest first step. So go and do that. Now, this being the first episode of season 3, I thought I might spend a moment talking about what you can expect from Off the Top in 2019. So just a couple of things. The first thing is that we're going to do a lot of episodes that are just like this. It's just me and you. The topics will vary. Mostly it'll be things that I'm currently processing through or thinking about. And so that's going to be a big theme for this year. We're going to have some guests as well. And mainly we're going to talk to people who I just think are like cool people that either I talk to on a regular basis that are personal friends, or that I believe will give a great listening experience through the conversation that would just organically come up in an off the top sort of way. There'll be a few times where I use this as a platform to deliver maybe some of my speaking engagements throughout the year. On a side note, if you're in the Holly Springs, Raleigh, North Carolina area, February the 10th, I'll be speaking at Oasis in Holly Springs. That's a Sunday at 9:15, and then again, I think at 11. And the topic is going to be the power of words and how you use your words to build and not break. So if you're there, you can send me a message or send me a DM or find me on social media, and I'll get you all the information there. And I'll also put some information. I'll link Oasis in the show notes as well, so you can check that out. It would be awesome to have you come in person to check out that particular talk. There's no tickets. It's everyone's welcome. And all you have to do is show up. You don't even have to RSVP. And so here's the last thing, that if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I hope that this is something that you want to come along for this ride through the year. If you've been around for a while, just thank you. And I appreciate so much you spending time listening to this podcast, and I hope that it's been something and will continue to be something that you enjoy. But way more importantly than it being something you enjoy, I hope and I pray that it encourages you to do something that will make your life better and make the lives of those around you better. So this is it, the first episode of 2019. Let's go see what we can make of this year. See you next time.